Well, obviously excited to get back out on the playing field. I think anytime you have a game like we did last Friday, to get back out there is what everybody wants, players, coaches, really fans probably. So excited for a Penn State game. I know we had a anticipated crowd probably as big as we've had here since I've been here, so excited for that. Orange out, all that goes into it, I think for us as head coach, I tried to get orange jerseys here. We're going to go all orange, but the supply chain issue popped in, so we can't get our orange jerseys, but we'll be in our traditional orange, blue, orange. Excited to play a Penn State team that's obviously highly ranked for a reason, good football team, but I think our guys know and understand it's about what we do, how we handle our moment, and to be in this situation is nothing more, couldn't ask for anything more. So injury-wise, everybody that played last week should be back. And then, of course, we talked about Matt Bailey and Zeke Holmes. Those guys will be as well in the lineup and moving forward. And other than that, we should be pretty healthy.
Is Matt, will he be on like a play restriction count, or is it just
not really? He's he practiced actually last week going into Kansas game. I was hoping we were going to get him in that one, but he didn't get cleared until afterwards. So he'll be involved literally. I don't know, it'll be the first snap a little bit based on their personnel and what they give us, but he's in the full game, in the game plan, full go.
Just what does it mean to have him back available?
Yeah, two things. Matt is a tremendous player, obviously good position, but as a person, as a player, very coachable. He's kind of a player a coach on the field. Does a really good job of taking players under his wings. He's kind of got a calm personality to him, so when things get big, he has a tendency to calm it down, and really good, just a good emphasis for us as coaches to have him in the game.
Have you seen him be able to grow despite the injury setback from last year?
Matt Bailey?
Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah. He was, especially the back half of the season and then in the bowl game when those guys didn't play, he really took a huge leadership role. Him and Sid were extremely close, so I think he literally took a lot from Sid. I remember in the first bowl prep after Sid had declared he wasn't going to play, I remember getting out on the practice field for bowl prep and seeing him warm up in the same routine that Sid warmed up in before practice, and it just made me smile because I knew he had taken an inventory there, and I think that's an indicator of what he is.
Coach, you and Josh have talked about it. Josh Whitman have talked about making this place a consistent winner. Going back to your history in Iowa and Wisconsin, what are the things that they're kind of got it going?
Well, I think the big thing is it's a longevity look, right? I think people take a little bit of a synopsis, right, of what they saw Friday, and what they saw Saturday. I think Toledo put up 70 points against the team they played, and obviously Kansas played fairly well the week before us. So I think there's a natural tendency of everybody in the world to just jump into you want instant results. So I think it's a very important thing to kind of take an inventory of where we're at. I didn't claim instant success after having a bowl game in January. I talked about sustaining success, and what I'm talking about, I signed a 6-year contract for a reason. I want to sustain it over a period of time. I think people that look at one game windows and try to treat it as a moment in time that lasts forever really miss the boat.
I know, Coach, the staff did a little bit of soul searching early in the week when you first got back. How'd that go applying that in practice this week?
Who said that?
Well, analysis.
Give me the definition. What is it?
Some analysis. Some.
So did we look at what we didn't do well?
Correct.
Okay. So anytime you lose a game, I think you have to look at what you do well and what you don't do well. Nothing changes from this last week against Kansas to the first 2 years that I've been here. Anytime you don't have success, you take a personal inventory of what you've done within a position room, within a unit, within a football team, and try to make yourself better. The good news is everybody looks at this, and I've been amazed by the woes me comments and things that are coming. Like it's a game that we didn't have success, and we got to get things right to move forward. But it's not a matter of dire straits. It's a matter of getting ourselves better.
Brett, have you been happy with? You've mentioned let's not let Kansas beat us twice. From an energy standpoint of practice, have you seen that this week?
Yeah, we definitely had a really good, in my opinion, Wednesday practice today was really good. Tuesday is always whether you win or lose. I think anytime you put new installs and you see opponents for the first time. Penn State, we did a little bit of prep on them in the spring and during the summer, during the fall, during fall camp. But we didn't have the 2 games on them that we had for West Virginia and Delaware. So you see their personnel a little better. There's still a lot of carryover offensively and defensively and special teams for them. But I think anytime Tuesday is just always going to be a little different. But I was really pleased Wednesday, Thursday, the energy, and obviously getting some guys back health-wise also helps.
Can you talk a little bit about that 9 overtime game 2 years ago?
Yeah.
Just talk about it.
Well, I definitely brought it up to those guys literally on Sunday night when we got together and talked about what's coming in front of us because I knew it was going to be brought up to them. That team went over there, obviously on the road a little bit different, but they were ranked number 7 in the country, and I believe we were 2-5 at the time and began to do things a little better. But needed to have something that kind of gave us something to stand on in that game. I think in particular, a lot of people will look at that and say, okay, this is when Illinois started to show that they could play at a level that everybody else can play at. So I think that moment in time, but that time is behind us. A lot of our good players, I asked for a show of hands in our first meeting on Sunday, or I'm sorry, our last meeting on Sunday when we kind of turned the page and went into Kansas prep, who's played Penn State in this room, right? And only the guys in the first couple rows raised their hands. This is my 6th time against them. To play Penn State is one thing, but to play them in an environment at home and hopefully be able to have success, that's something you'll remember for a lifetime.
Coach, I know this is a pretty big recruiting weekend for you. How do you approach that with the kids you have on
It's really
campus?
it's kind of just a normal home game for us. We got a lot of players, but we don't have any official visitors. Big weekends for us in recruiting is when you have official visitors in, and every home game we make big just because you can get kids on campus and unofficials. I believe we'll have 10 or 12 guys that are either committed to us or guys that we've offered that have, whether they've given a commitment somewhere else or they're visiting us. So it's big in that standpoint. But literally, as coaches on game days, we don't get a lot of chance to interact. I'll get a chance to meet with a couple individually, say hellos, but it's more of our recruiting staff and the environment that they'll see.
Since playing surfaces have been topical this week, how do you decide when you're in the stadium and when you're on grass for practice?
Well, the stadium is always an advantage for us just because of the wind conditions. I thought, before I even came here, I knew Memorial had an environment that you could gain an advantage, in my opinion, on letting your players, especially kickers and throwers and people that handle the ball, the effects of Memorial in the wind game, right? We changed the turf a year ago, or just this past year, to get the new turf that's in there now. So obviously, I think we're always trying to find a way as coaches, players, administration, to give our players the best tools to be safe. And I give credit to Josh. Like when I first got here, went to him, showed him the example of a customized helmet, which was a pretty expensive endeavor, a couple $100,000 to put all of our guys in customized helmets that are the safest out there. So he did that without flinching. So I think the turf, recovery equipment, we just had some new recovery equipment come into our building here in the next week or two that will help us get a chance to recover, hopefully better than ever. So I think our place, our university is looking at it as best they can, but obviously when we go on the road, you don't have to say in anybody else's turf.
Brad, in your 15 years, when you're facing a quarterback making his first road start, is that a talking point or is that something that gets brought up?
I think every quarterback you play, you want to apply mental pressure and physical pressure, and that doesn't change whether it's a guy that has started 5 games, 10 games, 2 years, 3 years. Quarterbacks are affected a lot by the people around them. The thing that Penn State has is they have exceptional talent. They have a tackle that's up for the Outland Trophy that is really good. They have really good skilled players at running back, wide receiver, and tight ends. They use multiple personnel groupings, so they keep the dial spinning. But obviously, anything we can do. And then they kind of bring a couple quarterbacks in. They do different things with certain points. So we'll get ready for the quarterback that's in there. But hopefully our crowd can also help us in that regard as well.
Hopefully, I phrase this in a way that makes sense. It seems like when you've had games like you had Friday, just in your time here, you can go back to Virginia or Indiana, like you guys play better, like much better immediately after that. So how have you established that culture of that quit age term?
I think 2 things. You have to look at what happened, right? And in the Kansas game in particular, we didn't start off really on fire, offense or defense. And when that happens, that's when there's a recipe for success. So we had 2 opening drives against our defense go for touchdowns. We had 4 opening drives on offense that didn't result in points. So really quick drives that ended. And that's something you can't sustain, especially if they have success. So the good news was we made some halftime adjustments, corrected, and for the second week in a row, did a much better job in the second half. We just spotted them too much in the first. So for us, we just finished defensively end of half and offense end of game, both situations that didn't go well for us on this past Friday. So I think it's important to teach your players not just that you had failure, but why did you have failure, and then try to give them the answers to be better.
Penn State runs the ball pretty well, maybe differently than the first 2 teams we've faced. What do you see from your run defense just to take that next step?
Yeah, I think for these guys, you'd really need to literally defend sideline to sideline. They do a lot of things to get the ball on the perimeter. They also hit you up inside. They run some pin pulls, which would gap you and try to gash you inside. They have 2 running backs that they feel kind of, you can see that they plan those guys on how they're going to attack you and what they're going to do. They have 3 tight ends they kind of roll through with, a couple wide receivers that bring different skill sets, but overall pretty good. So I think a little bit we have to get a pulse on what they're trying to do with the personnel that's out there, and then we have to react accordingly.
for those halftime adjustments, like from a communication standpoint, what makes those effective or has made those effective in those first two?
I think you got to have two elements. You got to have the things that you tell them, right? Be correct, right? If you tell them something that doesn't work, then that loses faith. But you have to have kids that are coachable. And I think for 2 weeks in a row, as bad as the first half has been, they definitely listen on the defense side of the ball. And offensively, even within the series, to come back and end that half with a touchdown, right? We got Isaiah involved. Next play was another big play to Isaiah, and then 2 plays later, Tip catches the touchdown pass, and it shows the effect that certain guys have on our team, and we got to capitalize on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Coach.